All right, welcome back, everybody. We're in What Makes It Tick episode 10. We're at 10, Greg. We made it. And can't wait to discuss a few things today. This today is a little different because I don't have like a big presentation or a big guest or anything like that. But I ran across something in the last few days that I've been fighting, and I wanted to share with other people. This was the solution because it drove me insane that I could not find the solution on this specific little small problem. And then we could talk about whatever else. Greg and I just naturally went into talking about audio backhaul and other fun stuff that we want to do and plan on doing soon future. Kind of a follow up from what Will Waters was sharing with us last year about the world of Dante and what they're looking forward to in the future. So it was a really good conversation with him, and looking forward to a great conversation again today. So I'm going to start off with my problem I was working with. I'm working with a friend of mine that is going to have us do remote production of all things, right? Remote production of a studio space. In their studio, they do virtual event production. So they're going to have guests inside, and they have an LED volume. They actually have two volumes in two different studios in their main studio there. And so two different rooms, Studio A, Studio B. We're going to be remoting in and controlling their cameras. They use the same Mark Roberts system that we use. And so we helped them install that and built it out. And so we're quite familiar with a lot of what's been done in the studio. One of the things we need to do is get faster audio and better audio because we're actually going to take over the audio eventually too. So we're going to ease into it this week, but audio is not on our plate this week. But I wanted to go ahead and get things in place. So without going into what I didn't feel like Dante Connect was the right choice right now. That's still on the table for later. They're completely Dante house. They have a CL1 and a QL1 and a whole bunch of other Dante devices. Every Mac, which is a slew of Macs, have they do Zooms. So every Zoom Mac has like Avios on it. So there's a lot of Dante infrastructure already in place. So it makes sense just to do Dante Connect. But I just didn't want to take on his project without knowing Dante Connect in and out and really proving it in our workflows. So we decided to go with the good old fashioned Unity Connect, the other Connect. And I was a little cocky. I gotta admit, I was a little cocky. I was like, oh yeah, 10 minutes. I'll get this configured up and we'll be ready to go. I just need a few things. And we started off down the path. 2 days later, I'm still beating my head on the wall. Now, this is right about the time, though, I got this sickness stuff. So I really wasn't thinking really well. Sudafed induced comas, tend to happen. And I woke up in the middle of the night one time and I was like, I know what's wrong. I know what's wrong. So I literally got on my phone and splash stopped into a machine here at the office so I could get into his machine on a different remote provider. And I got into it. I fixed it. I made it work. 3 o'clock in the morning. It was so irritating of what made it work. And I happened to watch one YouTube that I could find that was from the manufacturer, from Unity, and they just happened to admit it offhand. So that's what we're going to go through. So Unity Intercom, let me share my screen here of what we're talking about to start with. So Unity Intercom is um, a great solution for intercom, but they also have this product called Connect. So everybody should be able to see that, right? All right. So on Connect, the key thing is, as it shows in the diagram here, is you can have multiple connects going back into a master connect that is aggregating all this audio together. They have ways of using it not only just as a point to point. This is how we started out. We've used this in the past before, and that's why I was a little cocky, saying, "Oh yeah, I've got this, no problem. We'll get it set it up for you and everything." Took that on, and it was just probably because I hadn't done it in a couple of years. It's probably why I missed a couple little things that but they also changed the layout of it a little bit. So there was just familiarity issues that I ran into. So what we were doing was a very much like this type of setup, but just with a external piece that's over on the side. It's just a one unit there and then one unit back here. So bridging our two systems together was all that really was. The main thing that we ran into was in the configuration part is it says, you know, you could do 64 channels in, 64 channels out. What it really all came down to, it was so simple. After it was said and done, there is a tab, and I don't have. I'm still firing up my machine as it turns off. It turned itself off after I updated it earlier, so I went and booted it just now, and I'll get over to it in a second. But there's a site name. The site name has to be the site name in the very setup, the very beginning of
The
the
remote
setup.
names and the local names need to match.
Yeah, that is not documented. It's nowhere to be found. It never says in those words,
No, he says
this
it in the
must
video, though.
match that.
It's in the
They say in the
secret
video.
manual under job security, that section.
That's it. So less hair and 2 days of my life. And that's really all it came down to. It was just something. Mickey, I guess, you know, it's just a thing you do all the time. You get used to it and you probably ran into it. Now I'll remember it forever.
Yeah. And certainly like when initially testing Connect back in 2020 when I started dabbling in all this remote stuff. It was, yeah, something that caught me because like I was thinking like, okay, from my point of view on this site, it has to be this name. But if I'm on the other end, it makes more sense for me to refer it as this other name.
Right.
Like you know, the but now like I usually put like if it's a one-off build that will only be used for a single show, I'd call it like the TX, like say the Texas TX
Mm-hmm.
transmitter. If that's primarily like if I'm primarily sending from one place to another and not so much giving a return.
Yeah, so I just got my machine up so that I can get access to it now. So let me minimize a couple things that don't need to be seen. Just a second. Don't want to show that. Nope, nope, definitely don't want to show that. Thank you, Mac, for all your help. Sarcasm. All right, now. All right, so the one problem also, and we'll maybe make a group out of this, is the only other challenge I have is loop back now. Still, I have to put loop back on. I'm gonna have to put it on this machine. I don't have it. I have it installed. I've got to go do through the security boot thing and turn off the all the magic power of Oz in there, and then I'll be able to do it. So let me see if I can share just the screen. Then I'll make it bigger so I can see it. And so here we go. Share that. And it doesn't allow me to. Okay, so we're going to go with screen one. We're going to do it old fashioned way. There we go. Yeah, so this local connect name here was what I was running into. So the remotes company, name of his studio, I needed to make sure that on his, the name Pizzazz was there. And then on mine, I needed where the same place it was in general, here, local connect name Sage, on his is what I needed in mine. And that's all I ran into. And after I did that, I got a green light and everything's happy going. And now look, we've got audio coming through. So boom, boom, boom. All our 16 channels are there. My outgoing, I don't really have much going out right now. And I still haven't licensed these yet. So I still have the trial happening every once in a while. But that was it. That's all it was that. But it's and I don't know of any other place that I needed to change that. So yeah, no pop there. That pop up there, never really saw that. I guess I was clicking too fast. But that was where the problem was. And now, as I'm getting deeper into it, I'm noticing because I have Unity Server here also. Unity Server, I need to be able to use loopback to take the audios in and split both ways. We're gonna use his server. I have server running on this for other reasons. But we're going to use on his machine, he has server running on it. So we're going to use his server as the Unity server as the COM solution. And then I'm just going to use Unity clients here at our office. I really only want to connect it to play to be able to do the Dante back and forth. So while I have the guru here, or a couple gurus actually, I can see a few over here because I know John's already been playing with this too, and Greg a little bit, but I know Mickey's been in and out of it. So to be able to bring audio back this way and also the intercom. So currently right now is intercoms on channels 1 through 16. I would want to start my audio I'm pulling from his CL1 at 17, right? And then in loopback, I would bridge the Dante starting at 17. Is that what you would say also? Or
To
would
send it out
Dante and the
DVS?
loopback be starting at 1, or Dunia started at a different place?
Why do you need the loop back? Can't you just send the Unity to Dante? I mean, that's what I do, and then it's done.
It's because you're using 2 Unity packages on the same computer. That's what I
Yeah,
understand.
Oh,
yeah, Connect
yeah, yeah. My
and
my
the
connects are
com
standalone, so
server are on the same machine, and yeah, I do use loopback a lot for that.
I see.
So it would be a just a process of just starting from that channel over, and then I would just disregard. I mean, there's only 6 channels of Unity audio anyway. I'm sorry, Unity intercom audio. So I could start at 7, technically, I guess. Whatever we're not using is because he only has his PL channels mapped currently right now into Dante. So yeah, that's what I was working on over the weekend in my Sudafed stupor, and I highly recommend not doing that. It was a lot slower than I expected it to be. Um, and now that we've got things linked up, it's going along pretty swimmingly. Um, what is the latency? What's the magic latency I've noticed too? That like here, my audio buffer on the receive side is about 120. Is that where most of you are finding a sweet spot?
You know what the
Is-
physical distance is?
on my VPN, we measured it earlier as we were setting up Speed Fusion with them too. 41 was the actual physical.
3x buffer is not
Within the
bad.
US, like coast to coast, I'm able to get it fairly uh get it very darn stable at 80 or 100 milliseconds.
Okay,
Within, like, say, east coast to east coast, I could get it down to 40 or 60 reliably.
that would make sense there. Yeah, yeah. But me being in Central, I was thinking if I could get down to 100, I mean, I'm fine. But honestly, we're until we have to actually do mixing. I'm not really that concerned about the latency side.
Yeah,
Uh,
what I typically do, if you click on the remotes tab, Jeff,
mhm.
and um I would monitor both the latency and the jitter, and I would add them up and get an average over like 15 minutes. Like
Gotcha.
once a minute, take a reading, add up the average latency and the average jitter, and I just multiply it by like times 2. That's what I typically do, just for
That's a good
safety.
rule of thumb. Yeah, yeah, definitely. Yeah, because that latency doesn't seem right. 22 milliseconds to here. I guess it could be. It says
That's
50
one way.
across.
Like if you're doing a ping,
Oh,
you're
true.
measuring a round trip.
That's true. That's true. Yeah. Yeah, I think we're in good shape then. And do you
East to
guys
West
ride
Coast is
with?
around 42.
Say that again.
East Coast to West Coast is around 42
Okay.
milliseconds. So from here to Virginia Dulles data center, it's 42 milliseconds.
I remember that. I was thinking 50. So yeah, so that
Yeah,
makes
and I
sense.
usually do times 2, so yeah, East Coast to West Coast or vice versa. I set it to 80 or 100 since I double it.
And do you run with it? Have you been running with encryption on it in your setups?
Encryption's not
Most of the
gonna.
servers that I use don't have encryption, the pro license.
Ah,
Um,
that's right. You need that
but
too.
if it's available, because you need the pro license for encryption. If it's available, then yeah, I'll turn it on.
No, it's not gonna increase the latency. That's more processing on either side. but the network latency won't change. It's just additional overhead.
Yeah,
You should 20%
on the
for
CPU
that.
itself.
Yeah. Well,
But not
even
like
in the packet, like how much data you're transferring, you're adding overhead to each packet.
right. This is definitely not going to impact these little machines. That's all we're using them for. Specifically for that on the hardware side. Great. Well, cool. I'm glad we could put our heads together, and I hope you enjoyed sharing in my pain, because I needed somebody's shoulder to cry on, and it's like I barely talk. I couldn't hold my head up, and it was just so frustrating. It's like I read and read and read and watched videos, and and then it just all of a sudden the light bulb went off. I'm like, are you serious? That's all it was. Yeah, because I was fighting. We both have pep links. I helped him get into the pep link world for routers, so I was like, it must got to be something in the router. I just like, it wasn't making a connection, and the logs were useless to truly tell you there was a problem, that there was this is what the problem was. It just kind of encrypted something. And of course, it's the weekend, so support help was no help at the time. But yeah, that was a fun few days. But there was lessons learned, though. Don't get cocky, even though you did it once. Make sure you give it a little extra time for it. But yeah, things are rocking and rolling pretty soon. We do a tech rehearsal tomorrow, and we're going live on Thursday. So looking forward to it. Back into the virtual event world as we are. So Greg and I were talking at the very beginning of this a little bit about, of course, Calrex and higher end audio. Backhaul does have a little bit to do with that. So the RP1, Greg, is it all, whenever you were saying the RP1s were in place, that's the Calrex RP1. So it's a rack mount to you, right? 2-year rack mount, I think it was.
I never get
And
to see it. It's never on my end. I get
you
the board. I got the
never
fun
see it
side.
in person.
I
Okay.
think it's just 1U.
All right, so an RP1 is a product made by Calrex. It takes audio in and then converts it over, and allows you to pipe audio into the Calrex audio pathways. Is it converting to Hydra on its side?
Again, I don't see the remote side very much, but Calreg pretty much uses Hydra. Well, all the new stuff is Hydra 2. It's all distributed I/O. My desk is just a surface. There's a big, like 8 RU rack that's got all the DSP processor in it. And then there's a big network card that's a bunch of fiber ports and all the I/O modules. You want analog, you want AES, you want MADI, you want Dante, whatever. You put those wherever you want. Put it next to the gear it connects to, and then you just run Cat fiber over to it. IO is wherever you want it to be. But in the case of remote hybrid stuff, I do a lot of stuff for NBC. So they've got the big campus in Stamford, Connecticut. And many a times I sit there and we mix and produce the show there. Golf would be at a golf course, like say in California, other side of the country. So my announcers are on site. My roving announcers with wireless microphones are walking the golf course on site. We've got cameras and microphones all over the golf course to pick up the golf effects. All of that gets sent back to Stanford. We typically have about 25 video paths, and all of them typically have at least 8 channels of audio embedded in them. So they move everything on site all the way over to Stanford. And then from our perspective, it works just like we were in a truck on site. We have access to all the same signals. But you've got the big latency in between there and here. And how do I, make, announcer mixes in their headsets so that they don't speak, goes to Stanford, I mix it, send the IFB back, because I've got producers that are sitting at Stanford that want to hit a key to tell the announcer, hold on, don't talk yet, and the open's done, go. So all of that has to be integrated.
So you mentioned that earlier. So the RP1 has DSP on it, though.
Yeah, so the RP1 is just an extension of DSP I have in my console.
But it doesn't have, okay, so it's not doing a mix itself.
It is doing part of the mix. So normally, okay, if we were all on site, your microphone would come into my fader. So I have your announcer mic, and anybody else that's in the booth with you, my rover guys, and all the effects and all the playback sources. All that creates a mix that you hear in your headset if you're commentating the show. That mix goes through the intercom system so that we can interrupt it, give you cues in your headset, and then it comes into your ear cups and you hear it. Okay. So on site, the latency for you to speak into your mic, that audio to come to the truck, get processed, and sent back to your headset, we're talking about a millisecond or less.
Right.
Okay, so there's virtually no delay to discern
Yeah, of
from
course.
their perspective.
Mhm.
But when I put America in between us, now we're talking, 40, 60, and actually the SDI paths take well over a second to get to me. I'm not exactly sure how they get there, but they go through all these AdTran encoders through the actual internet and then get all decoded back in Stanford. So yeah, it's a little bit of time. So the way the RP1 works is I say, okay, great. I want to add your mic that's on site, and your mic would be connected to the RP1. So that would be a source. And then I don't know how the RP1 gets the rest of the mix from the actual desk. I got to admit, I'm in the dark on how that part actually works. But when I create a mix now with on-site resources, the DSP is mixing them locally and then adding my sources from my console as a remote into the RP1, and it's creating that mix over there. So the latency for the announcer to hear himself in his headset is still almost nothing. But the rest of the stuff that shows up in his headset still takes the time it takes to get from Stanford into his ear. And that also includes the IFB. And we have an IFB frame on site that's trunked in with the one at Stanford. So again, that RP1 mix goes through the local frame of the RTS system. So again, the latency is minimal from their perspective. But everything works in tandem, so that if I open up your fader, the RP1 says, oh, look, let's add this to the mix. And when I close the fader, it takes it out of the mix. So it's tracking the mix just like it was coming all the way to my console and getting processed and going all the way back, but it's not.
Gotcha.
And that solves
So
the latency problem.
that explains a lot of. I'm familiar with RP1. I was looking at them actually really hard. About 2 years ago, I guess, is when they really kind of hit.
Well, unless you're going to buy Apollo or Artemis, I don't think it does you any good by itself.
No, they did. No, they had a software. Tempest T, I think is what it was, or something like
okay.
that. That the software was the interface to it.
I
It
see.
just never made sense for me in my application at the time. Now, looking back, I'm glad I didn't, because I'm like the Argos and the newer stuff. That is it. The Impulse series is, I think, their
Well,
new
the only
frames.
difference there, I mean, as far as I can see, everything works kind of the same. The surface is very different on the Argo, but the Impulse is basically a 2110 core. So all the older Artemis, Apollo, all that stuff uses Hydra 2, and that's the backbone. So that's the
Okay.
big thing. When you move to Impulse and all the newer platforms, now you're on 2110. So in Stanford, the entire plant by now should be 2110. They have swapped out all the engines on the Apollos, and actually they only have one or two Apollos, and everything else is an Artemis or smaller. But all the mix engines got changed from whatever they were to they're all running Impulse now. And they were doing some of these switchovers in the rack in my room while I was there on with the show. And I would go home and I would come in the next day. One day I come in and none of my monitors work in the room, and I'm like, okay, what happened? I can't hear anything. I go down, and it takes a while to call on the radio and get an engineer. And I mean, there's 762 steps from the front door to the typical room I do golf in. I mean, that's how big this building is. It's
Oh, wow.
massive. I mean, you could put, like 10 football fields inside of this place. So I have to call out for engineers, and they come up and they're like, what's going on? And I'm like, no speakers, no nothing. Hey, I'm on the air in 90 minutes. And they're like, oh yeah, well, they switched out that whole processing box last night. Here, hold on. And, like goes in the side of the rack in the wall. And oh yeah. No, it tripped the breaker or something. And hold on. Okay, it's reset. And then all my speakers work. And I'm like, and he said, yeah, you might have to repatch a few things too while you're at it.
Oh, no.
Because the IO box that you patched for your show is no longer here. It's gone. There's a new 2110 box. And I'm like, could have left me a note. I'm glad you broke my speakers, because had I not asked, and now I got 90 minutes to fax the show and realize that half of it is just gone. It doesn't exist
Wow.
anymore, and have to repatch all this. And I mean, you're talking about, I have hundreds of effects mics on a golf show. It's a lot.
Wow.
Anyhow, but yeah, so for whatever reason, the golf guys gave up on the RP1. I don't know why. We're actually using a symmetric prism now. And somebody went in and they preset all these mixes for me. And I don't have access to the DSP and the Prism as a mixer, which I also have a big gripe with. So the only thing I have a handle on is my part that I send you and how loud is it? So I'm constantly in the commercial breaks. How's your mix? How's your mix? How's your mix? Oh, I'm having trouble hearing this. I'm like, so I'm guessing when I make corrections. It's
Have
it's
you
really a
asked
step
them,
backwards.
do they perceive the latency of from you to them?
It depends, and I'll tell you the big thing now is that when I lost the RP1, the audio comes over. What is that tie line thing? There's a tie line thing. Uh, it's 8 channels. But the thing is, so I get like 4 announcers in the booth, and then my 3 roving guys come over that 8 channel box. The problem is the box works in 4 stereo pairs. So the temporal alignment is good for every pair, but the pairs
Oh,
don't stay aligned. So play by play and color, which are literally sitting here, and my analyst and a guest are sitting right here in a table, and sometimes they face each other. Now the latency between these 2 mics and these 2 mics sits there and goes like this all day long. So I would kept hearing like just a phase, a flash. It's like, and then it's gone. And I'm like, what is going on in here? Is that my
because they're
speakers?
picking
Am
up
I
each
doing
other's
something?
mics. Oh
Well,
my
no,
gosh.
because the latency between pair 1 and pair 2 is not staying the same. It's going like this, it's going
Wow.
like this. And we bring them over that box because the latency over that box is now, I don't know, it's less than half a second. And the latency to get all my other stuff is like 1 second, 2 seconds. So, and I'm also generating a mix that goes back to the walkers. So the walkers actually hear the announcers go on and off, but the announcers in the booth, since the radius is pre-mixing, in their headsets, their mic's on all day, regardless of what I do. So if I roll a tape, commercial, whatever, and the other thing that I don't like about it is they messed up how that audio goes through the intercoms. Now the intercom interrupt mixes instead of interrupts. So if Ding Dong is telling a joke loudly, boisterously in the commercial break, and the producer is going, "All right, we're back from break in 10, 9." They don't hear that.
Because it's
So the
just added on to the
guy gets down to
noise.
0, and the punchline makes air. And I'm yelling at like the A2 or something, like, "Hey, give him the, hey, you're live."
Oh wow.
And you'll
Wow.
hear, "Yeah, and it wasn't that funny." Welcome back to the golf course. That's what makes air. It's like, we're a network. We shouldn't do this. Anyhow, sorry for airing the dirty laundry on that, but yeah, these are typical problems that you're going to
Yeah,
get into if you're going
these
to
are
do
things that
hybrid
we're
stuff.
fighting. That were there,
Absolutely.
and honestly, I have no idea what I'm gonna be up against with doing the audio remotely. I'm talking about 3 mics. It's not like I'm mixing, a golf
Well,
course like
most of
you
the
are.
typical stuff that we would work on, yeah, I mean, you're not going to run into half of the issues that I do on a show like that. I mean, you just don't have enough resources for one thing. But yeah, if you've got to put something in somebody's ear, you got to think about what are they going to hear? If
Right.
I bring it all the way back here and send it all the way back, it's going to be like the old satellite delay. Hi, my name is what they're going to hear
Or
in their
worse.
headsets.
Yeah,
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
yeah,
So you don't want that going on. And this comes back to practice, practice, practice.
yeah.
you know, and one of the things that's instrumental is I always have an A2 on site that sets up all the equipment for me. But I have one that lives in the announce booth with the main commentators. They are always there 100% of the show time. So he and I, will go through every single headset every day before the show goes on the air.
Yeah.
Hi, do you hear
Yeah.
me talking in your ear? Yeah, okay, great. And then I hear you, hit your talk back. That's the off-air
Mhm.
talk to the producer thing. We fax all of this. Let me feed you some music. Let me pan it to your left ear, to your right ear, everything where it's supposed to be. Okay, great. Next headset, next headset, next headset. Okay. Do you hear any delays? Do you hear any echoes? And the big thing that they do here is regardless of how the foldback mix in their headphone is perfectly and no latency, when I hit my microphone in Stanford to say, "Hey, can you hear me in your headset?" they're also speaking in speakers that are, right here. And here's my microphone on my gooseneck that I talk into. So my microphone is picking up them with the latency in my room. So when
Wow.
that key is open, and that holds true for the director and the producer in the control room next door. So when those keys are open, yeah, they do hear a little bit of themselves in the background. And it just kind of depends on your production team. If you got a guy that likes rock star volume, in his control room, then it's a big
Right.
deal. But a
Right.
lot of the golf guys, they do actually have a fairly quiet control room that they work in. So that helps, and producers knowing that the microphone has to go here, not up here. Okay, stand by,
Or
stand
underneath.
by.
Yeah.
Yeah, or oh, I took the headset off to take a drink, or I had to run out in the commercial break, and I forgot to put it on my head when I came back and sat down. Yes, that's happened too.
Yeah, you do enough of these, you end up with about every variation you could ever think of, and then somebody's going to come up with another one, without a doubt, because it's never ending. So we were talking also, Guy, to help Guy a little bit on a Dante quest that he's on. So Guy's going to buy. Have you bought, or are you trying to find it? Is that right?
Just trying to figure out what I want to be when I grow up. It started with this church project where we got an XR18, and then we wound up with a second one. And then I was like, well, I want to buy one just to learn it at home, because I started getting into some of the dynamics and there was some feedback, and I just wanted to watch some videos and figure out what was going on. And then I was like, well, I may as well get an X32, and then I may as well get a Dante card. And then I start hearing all this Midas stuff. And then next thing you know, I'm on a Facebook Marketplace buyer to buy a full size Midas M32. And I'm like, dude, what are you doing? Like, this thing's like 3 feet and you don't even need all that. And then I bought it. So tomorrow an X Touch arrives. So we're doing a project where we're using the X Touch with vMix, and multiple operators have them with Stream Deck. So we're able to pet a show in vMix, but also control the levels and see in the scribble strips the appropriate names and everything.
Right.
So basically, I don't really need all the IO because most of the stuff's going to be Dante, but it'd be nice to have something in case I need to travel somewhere and just want a couple channels.
Sure.
So
No, I think that
I'm
Midas, that
torn
one
because
U Midas is like that is a sweet spot with a lot of power. I
yeah,
wish, I just so wish that the Yamaha TF rack was a 1U, because
that's
I never touched the front of it ever.
that's another one that I just saw at this studio in Seattle. In fact, for office hours next month, Josh is in here. He's been talking with Tenacious Ventures. They use that TF1 rack with the TF, and they have a TF1 full size
Mhm. Yeah.
panel desk. And so I started looking at those, and I mean, it pains me to buy an X32 or something that's 10 years old. Like, I'm a technology guy, and I'm like, why do I want to buy something that's ancient? Like, it seems like,
Because
there's
it
Allen Heath,
works.
and then there's this new Yamaha DM7 or DM3, and then you
Yeah.
can't get
Yeah.
those because if you want the DM3D with Dante. So I'm on
You
this
really want
quest now
one?
where
I'll
I
sell you mine. I'm disappointed.
in the DM3D.
Yep,
You have a D,
I
the
have a
Dante
D.
one.
I have the Dante one.
Oh, I mean, you're like the
Yeah, but
unobtainium
you know what?
right
I
now.
I was under the impression that it was going to have the Dugan auto mixing.
It
Doesn't.
does.
They advertise it as
Mhm.
having 18 by 18 USB, which would be really cool, except that, oh, that only talks to Steinberg. Period.
Oh, as a
I'm like,
DAW.
really? I mean, talk about shooting yourself in the foot. I mean, it would have been great. I'm really disappointed in it. And for what it cost, it should do more. Sorry to
And then
interrupt.
on the further quest, there's a CL1 which Mickey saw for sale locally here, which I could probably pick up for 10 grand. And Tucker's like, dude, if you're gonna get something and learn it, are you really gonna go into X32 land and go learn stuff that's 10 years old? And or all our shows are all QLs and CLs, and so I'm just completely torn now. I
But
should probably
even
just
then, even then, the QL and CL is still outdated now, too. Very quickly, they're
yeah,
still
and
being
the
used, but
DM, yeah, the
it's
DM
still an
series is
8-year-old
Can
product.
can I counter the 10-year thing?
Go.
You know, guys, that my favorite console in the world to mix on right now is the Calrec Apollo, right? You guys know what this is? You guys heard of this board? Okay,
I've
it's
heard of it.
fabulous. It's fabulous. It's $750,000 in its typical configuration that I mix behind. Okay, 10-year-old technology. There you go.
Guy.
Still love it.
750.
The thing about audio stuff is audio longevity runs a lot longer than anything in the world of pictures. I mean, you make something that's really
Very true.
good in the audio world.
If
Seriously,
you
you can
pay
get
enough at
decades
the
out of
first
it.
in the first place.
Yes.
Well,
Well,
that's the thing is,
no, but look at the
this other
X32.
guy,
I mean, it's a
Brandon,
fabulous
has
engine. So
Yeah.
this new Allen and Heath video that he just put up with the SQ5, and he's ringing out this room, and he goes in and he's pulling up the dynamics, and he's able to see it right there, what frequencies to pull down. And I'm like, that's pretty slick. I don't think that the X32 is that fast and has that many features, but you're also paying like 3,500 plus another 800 for the Dante card. So you're in at like $4,300. And I'm like, I might as well go start looking to get a Yamaha CLs that are used.
True. Yeah, and the only reason I know at my buddy's studio, I sold him a QL1. I bought a QL1. I got it here to the office, and he called me the day I received it. He goes, "Hey, I want to buy a QL1. Can you find me one?" And I was selling him a bunch of other stuff too. And I was like, "Well, I'll sell you the one that's right here. I'll just order another one." That was the last one. That was the last one.
No.
It was
Yeah.
during that and then we had the drought, and then it
Yeah.
was drought, drought.
Well,
That would
those
leave the
DM
last one.
series are starting to come in, so we're starting to see like just 2 churches locally have CLs and QLs for sale because they obviously got the new DM stuff.
And then that's what another thing too. It boggles my mind because my church did this 6, 7, it's probably 10 years ago now. They had LS 932s, not in the Dante world. No, those weren't in Dante. They were still in analog. So they did a big retrofit in the Family Life Center or whatever. They bought a $60,000 Soundcraft VI 3000, and I just shook my head. I'm like, where was this in the improvement? I could not understand it. But it was just one of those things. Like I just wrote a check. It says, buy whatever you need. Here's $250,000. And they did a major upgrade and everything in their sound system, everything guts to front to back. They put in an expression, one of the threes, I think it is, for not expression. Yeah, expression, right? Is that the small Soundcraft, the one I have? Greg's nodding because yeah, he was locked in the back of the bus with it one time. But yeah, the expression 3 is what we did the audio for video
This
with,
the
and it was all
SI
yeah,
series.
the SI series. Yeah, I honestly I liked it because it was an easier one. That VI, holy cow, there was 2 guys in the whole church that could ever turn it on and make sound out of it, and it was just so much more complicated. But my point is, churches will get talked into just upgrading for no real reason, no real benefit. I did the same
Well,
thing. I
sometimes
sold it.
it's that use it or lose it money where there's like, hey, if we
I
don't
don't know
spend
if
this
it
money
is.
this year.
It is somewhat of that. I don't think, there were certain that work around the whole budget thing like school districts would, but I think it's more so if the sound companies come in, they get mad at a previous sound company, the previous sound company or person. A lot of times too could be, we were paying a sound guy, we were paying an A1 to run our services, and they got mad at him, fired him, and then the new guy comes in and goes, this is all crap. This is all crap. We got to get rid of all this. We got to update all this. And he lasted about 2 weeks because I was like, I pulled the pastor aside. I was like, don't listen to what he's saying. There's no reason. You can make great sound work out of this. And so we had a long conversation. And from that point on, it was, hey, let's ask Jeff before we go spend a whole bunch of money and stuff. Cause I tried to get in front of that other project before it happened, but I didn't. But I found that what churches will do is that's what happened. They'll fire the sound company they were using, or the installer, the system integrator, whatever they were using. They'll fire them, and then everything that they put in, they'll pretty much just say, "Well, get rid of it. We're going to start fresh." And so I think we're going to see a lot of CLs and a lot of QLs hit the market from the house of worship side. It is just because, oh well, the DMs are the new thing. That'll make us sound better. No.
No, your A1 makes you sound better, period.
Yeah. If we're talking about digital pathways and stuff, you're not going to hear, I'm sorry, but you're not going to nobody in a church environment is going to hear the difference between a QL1, a CL1, a DM, and an Allen and Heath. And if it's all Dante anyway.
How about a Behringer in there?
Oh yeah, you'll definitely hear that.
Yeah, here's another vote for your Behringer argument. How many people, you were talking about your VI, and very few people know how to drive that.
Yeah.
How many millions of audio dudes know how to push faders on an X32, M32, that whole family? They're all the same. It's the same mix engine, no matter which version you buy.
True.
So the
No, there's
capabilities
something
are
to be
the
said
same.
about that. There,
There's and 10 years in, there's been plenty of millions of people that have put their hands on one and now know it. You know, it's like it's a common interface to a degree. You look at TV trucks, almost every TV truck has a CalRec board in it. Why? Because we all know it. You throw a SSL like the C100, C10 in a truck. Even somebody like me, I struggle on that because I see one every like 8 years. So, and it's just different. It's very different than anything else ever made. Not just it's different than a CalRec, it's different than Yamaha, Midas, everything. So you really, if you don't know it, you're kind of stuck. So
no, I
there's a
agree
lot
with
to
you
be said
completely
for
there.
that, when you buy into something. Who's gonna
That's
run
when
it?
one of
Can they?
my buddies, he's been around a few times. I don't see him here today. Joe Pashley from Arizona, his 3 trucks that he has, which are smaller, definitely smaller market trucks. They're all X32 for that reason, because he could just go into any job crew list and everybody, well, I would say that most everybody that you could find that's an A1 knows how to run an X32. There are a lot that we found out because he's calling me for help on it, and I'm having. Matter of fact, I've called you, Greg, on the same thing. Greg's touched it more than I had, and I was like, "What is this Dante routing shenanigans that you have to go through the user groups and all this other user routing and all that?" It's just once you understand it, though, you can make it work. So, guy, I don't know if I would say 100% stay away, but I wouldn't spend over a couple $1,000
See, that's the tough part
for
is because
sure.
like when I was talking to Tucker about it, he's just like, I don't even want to spend the brain power to go learn an X32. He's like, I love my Yamahas. It does, do good. And it's like he lives in that world. And he's like, I
Yeah.
don't even want to waste brain cycles learning it. And so that's my concern is I don't want to go read the manual and watch a bunch of videos and invest a bunch of time in learning an X32 and then wind up going, okay, I need to get a Yamaha.
I
Now I
think
got
it
to go
still
relearn
works off of
something else.
foundations are foundations. So it still
Yeah.
works off the basic principles. The thing I don't like about it is the routing. That's it for me. The flexibility that I have in the expression on my Soundcraft, I got used to that, where I could put Dante channels anywhere I wanted. I could put faders anywhere I wanted. You could sort of do that now with the X32, but at first, when I first got him, I had to. This our first digital boards we were had in our trucks. The rack mount ones though, and then I had one U and one of the 3U, I think it was. But the challenge I had with those was I could not teach any of my guys to understand that funky routing that they had to do to get everything working. And at that time we weren't as advanced as we are now, with a separate comms radius running just that, and comms and having so much more monitoring capability on a radius, symmetric square radius, versus we were doing it all on the audio mixer. And so there was too much of a chance of things going to air. And I was like, I needed simplicity. And that's where to me, the expression is that. And though there are people that don't like the Soundcraft for whatever reason, I don't know. I found it was easier and simpler to get things done. Uh, I I have never got mixing station working with my Soundcraft, so it's still, to me, steps backwards versus what I could do with my Yamaha, because of the reason I went into the Yamaha was that software interface. So I could, which I missed. I had that in the X32. I can log into a machine wherever it is in the country, or the world for that matter, and I could help them out because I could visualize it and see it in the software. Whereas on the other side, if that Soundcraft, I'm like, hold your phone up. Nope, nope, it's out of focus. No, wait, is that knob on? I can't tell. Is the color on? So, yeah,
That's
FaceTime
the other part is just
driving.
that support, like there's so many X32s out there, there's companion modules and that's kind of where my mind's going is just like what else is
True.
already established because there's so many users that they will build these buttons and build these pathways. So
Well, and it's
something
one
to
of the
consider.
most remotable boards that I play with. I mean, you can control 100% of the X32 world remotely. Not a problem. It's well supported in companion, central control, many
Even
surfaces.
regular OSC.
Yeah,
Oh,
I
true.
mean, you've got a million options to put hands on it. So,
It's funny you should mention
But
central control. Funny you should mention that. New updates rolling out. Thanks, Joe, for updating it for some new ones. Still waiting on a very important module myself. Is
Ross
he's
Carbonite.
working No, I was first. Is Yamaha, and he is working a Yamaha module for me. So to be able to tie in and have remote control. So excited about that too. To be able to get
Do
slotted
you know what Yamaha boards?
with QL and CLs.
Okay,
So
nice.
apparently that's the fastest way to get into it, and TFs would probably hopefully fall behind that. But from what I understand, is the new APIs or with the same stuff that Andy's using, Broughton's using, is those new APIs are talking QL and CL are the same, so those are identical, but the
Yeah,
DMs are the same as the
and the
QL,
P.
CL, and P.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Yeah. I'm wondering like how about the PMs? So I don't know if anyone's already taken those on at least for like full control capabilities.
yeah. I wonder because I mean that's just going to open up a whole nother world for us to be able to truly. I mean, I do have. I finally got the CL editor, and we were able to get things working across the VPN and stuff. So I saw that today. So from here in Texas, I've got the CL editor up, and I've got it on my 4K screen. It looks gorgeous. I've got every single slider and every module up, and plenty of resolution. Look great. But I just try to adjust one of those little faders that's about that big. It's just not going to be conducive to being quick. So that was the main reason I wanted to have banks of faders. I did use Scarhoy's interface with it, and they are supporting TF, CL, and QLs. And so I use their Colorfly, which is half of a waveboard that they have, which is made specifically for audio, and it worked. It worked. We used that in Delray, and so I had 3 different banks, and I could group the sliders. I made one of them was basically like a custom layer, so I had just the 4 major things I needed to be able to manipulate and grab real quick, and worked great. So it looks like some things are opening up, but for me there's not enough functionality in the Scorehoy side to be able to. I need more. I need to really be able to get into it, and really control like mutes, groups, and things like that a little bit faster, I think. So that's kind of where I'm headed on the remote side. Thinking more of the control, and then we're going to use the Unity Connect now that we got it working. Yay! Same names, same names, same names. Don't name things you don't know. And then once I got that working, that's just going to be for confidence audio coming back. So Mickey, let me ask you that question. So in your experience doing remote mixing, do you bring a stereo pair and then a cue so you can solo?
Yeah.
Anything else?
Typically, well, if I'm mixing stereo, yeah, I send the program to me, and then also yeah the Q bus, so I can solo either channels or say, because I going back to what Greg was mentioning earlier, like anything, if people need like a monitor mix, you want to do that locally because you don't want the delay of going back and forth. So I would also want to, if I'm doing the monitor mix myself or the Q mix or whatever it is, um I would like to be able to solo that bus. So that's where the Q bus is handy as well.
Yeah, that's
But I
exactly what
don't
I
I
was
don't
thinking.
process on my end usually. We've experimented with that, and being able to like avoid the whole round trip latency is certainly a benefit. So I'd rather process on site instead of
Agreed.
round tripping the entire thing.
Yeah, it just makes more sense. Yeah. I have another friend that I've worked with. I need to bring him into our friend group here and get him involved. Um, uh, he's been doing long haul audio since the pandemic started, and Alex is his name, and I think he was actually on Office Hours one time. Alex and his partner, they've really targeted that, and they built a product line around it. And it was the idea behind it was to be able to offload all the audio and then send back the program and bun it. I wonder how he's figured out that it's working or not. And see, love to hear how things have developed for him because he's been doing some pretty big conferences and stuff. But just remoting all the audio control to his place. He's in Georgia, outside Atlanta. And yeah, I have to call out to Alex and see if I can get him involved one day, have him tell us a little bit about what's happening. Because I find it's like we're a lot of us are finding the same problem. That's the whole reason I wanted to start this series, was just put our heads together and just kind of do like what we did today, is help solve some problems and maybe laugh at some people because they're doing stuff stupid, because things happen whenever you're on Sudafed and induced comas. And then next time maybe that will help somebody else get a little bit faster. And maybe somebody in a video somewhere that's transcribing this will understand that in Unity Intercom's Connect product, you have to
That's
have the
just
names match.
that's just like today Chad Lafarge was like, I'm having this audio stutter issue with Josh's in here, and the first thing I asked is what instance are you using? Oh, we're using a G4DN2X, and I'm just like, oh man, all this pain that these guys are going through because we've been there, and it's just like,
Yep.
I wish that I could just give them or if they would have said something, I just would have went and used our script and just would have, built the whole thing in 18 minutes, and they wouldn't have to worry about nothing. But instead, they had to enjoy the pain of blip, 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 and then what's going on? What's going on? Did
There's
you
the
guys fix
problem.
it, Josh? Did you upgrade your instance?
Not yet. It's on the way. It's on a truck. It's going to be delivered. We're getting
It's one
close.
click, one click. You just have to click on it. You will have to enter in your vMix license again because it'll lose its head. It'll recognize that new hardware's been put on, and then you just type it in and should work. And hopefully that solves it. Otherwise, you're going to 8x. I don't know how many feeds you guys are trying to pull, but do you know ultimately are you going to try to do more than uh, 6 is about
Um,
what you're going to be able to get
I
it in
think the
8x.
dry run for it was going to be for the Gray Matter show, so not a lot of guests. But as soon as there was some interesting artifacts from apparently the underpowered computer about it. Whenever there was in program, whenever there was no participants in program, it was fine. Audio was fine. And as soon as we took scenes with present with one of the Zoom
And as soon as you made it
contributors
do
into it,
something, as soon as you saw Task Manager like do
yeah,
something with the CPU.
and I don't even know if the task manager even blew up on that or not, but apparently something was at its limit because yeah, it just garbled as soon as we took
There was
a
an
source or
article.
SERP source.
There was an article by Michelle McGregor in Streaming Media Magazine where she did the same thing. She followed our directions from the Office Hours episode, wrote it all down, but she used a 2x, and same thing. She blew up her show in front of an audience and learned a hard lesson. And I'm just like, start at
It's why you
4x, start at
test.
4x.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't
Why you
switch back.
test and why you just ask. Just ask somebody. I'd be the same way. Start at 4. Just it's not worth the cost difference. It's just not worth it. And I think that's what a lot of people will think. Well, it's like it doesn't matter, And then also the way the AWS hides the I would say they hide it. It's just like you have to know where to look for it. But the virtual CPU and the RAM and the combination that everything is for each one of the instances, it doesn't read normal. It's not something that's just simple to understand. So they could definitely help a little bit. I'd love to have I would rather have an encryptic number that you could decipher, that's in the name or something like that. I just gave them the idea. But yeah, that was another one we've ran into in the past too. But also there are times that just turning up the power doesn't work, because I had guy running at a 24XL and it still didn't work. I was like, let's start over. I don't know what he did to that machine, but it was like, you don't need that power. That's for sure. And there's no sense in just wasting money if it's not, well, it works most of the time like this. I'm like, but you don't need to run like that. So we started, like you said,
That's where
guy, just start from
that's
scratch.
where we segment. We'll use 4 machines and segment things off. So we
Exactly.
won't do encode and cutting on the same machine. We'll have encoding distributed. I mean, it's better just distribute the load. So we'll have ingest on one,
Microservices. Exactly.
microservices. Yeah, that's what we
That's where
fly.
it's at.
Yeah.
Well, it was a great day, guys. I'm headed off to a basketball game. I've got a playoff game my daughter is cheering at. So we're gonna go have some basketball hoo-ah and see if we can finally win against this team. It's not looking good though, but we'll see. And enjoy the visit with everybody this week. Looking forward to next week again too. I'll let you know how things work out on this remote studio build and operations and everything. And think about something else that we may want to discuss that's a little bit more elaborate if we want to. And thanks to everybody for coming in, and look forward to seeing you in the next week.